What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw. So, let's see. What is the name of this podcast? The No Chill podcast, which is hosted by Gilbert Arenas. I never really heard of it. But Dwight Howard, who's with the Washington Wizards, I believe he's still with the Washington Wizards, said something interesting in the podcast. He said that um, he thinks that Kobe Bryant was a better basketball player than Michael Jordan. The exact quote is, um, quote, like I told you earlier, I think he's better than Jordan. And I only say that because I feel like everything Jordan did, he did it better, unquote. Um, Now, I've come around with Kobe over the last couple of years. I do believe that he's a top 10 all time player, but, I just don't agree with that. I really wonder if it's, and I notice more of the younger players are of this opinion that Kobe is the GOAT or Kobe's, better than Jordan, and I really wonder if it's because some of these guys were born much later. Like a lot of these guys now, it's getting to the point where you're starting to have players born closer and closer to the year 2000, which would be really, in my mind, the post Jordan era. I mean, yeah, Jordan played with the Wizards, and maybe that's their only memory of Jordan, some of them, or some of them just might barely remember the three-peat. And I have to say that I think most people compare prime Kobe with the second three-peat Jordan. When Jordan that wasn't the best Michael Jordan. The best Michael Jordan was from 1987 probably to 1992. 92, 93 was the first year you could see some slippage in his game, especially from an athletic standpoint. I think that they're comparing that version of Jordan to prime Kobe, which is close, but I think Kobe was a little bit better than uh, from an offensive standpoint overall. I think he was a little bit better probably than the second Jordan, maybe. But if you're comparing him to Jordan in his prime, no, it's not. It's a substantial difference. Um, Now, is there anything that I think Kobe did better than Michael? I think that Kobe was a better ball handler. I think he was statistically maybe a slightly better free throw shooter, just slightly. I think that he was a better deep shooter. Maybe he had a little bit more moves. Maybe, but the difference to me is I think Jordan was a better defensive player. Like that's not one thing that he did. Kobe was a beast. Was Kobe was very good defensively, but Michael was a defensive player of the year candidate and did win it in 87, 88. I think that Michael at one point in time for a long stretch was the best offensive player and best defensive player in the NBA. All right. But I think Michael Jordan better defensively. I think Michael Jordan was more definitive in his moves. I think Michael Jordan had better footwork. I think Michael Jordan was a better finisher. I think Michael Jordan was quicker, faster, stronger, uh, more athletic, more competitive, nastier, even nastier than Kobe. I mean, he just was the ultimate player. As far as like who was the better scorer, look, no matter how you look at it, Michael wins that argument. Now you could say that Kobe was a better shooter, maybe from outside, but Michael was had the better mid range game. Michael was more accurate around the basket. Maybe Kobe was a better pure shooter, maybe. But if you look at the analytics, Michael was better. Even if you go advanced metrics, Michael was better. Better PER rating, better efficiency rating, better field goal percentage. You know what I'm saying? And even toward the end of his career, their 3-point percentage, even though you heard so much about how Kobe was a better 3-point shooter, and he was a much more prolific 3-point shooter than Michael, but if you look at the percentages, they're about the same. I think Kobe finished his career like right under 33% from beyond the arc. Michael was 33%. And you can make the argument that if you take away the first couple of years when Michael really wasn't shooting that shot, and he was only shooting it like desperation heaves or strategically in certain moments of the game, like when the Bulls were down by 2, they needed, or down by 3 and needed a 3, or you know shot clock running down, situations like that, half court heaves. He didn't really start shooting that shot, I think, until the 89-90 season. And if you take that into account, Michael was really more of a 35, 36% 3-point shooter. And if you want to, more evidence to substantiate that, look at his finals average. He shot 37% from 3-point range in the finals. If I'm not mistaken, I think Michael Jordan shot 3-pointers. I think Michael Jordan's 3-point percentage is better than Kobe's in the NBA finals. If that means anything, if I'm not mistaken. I definitely know he had a better field goal percentage. I think in the finals, Jordan was around 48 to 49% in the finals. I think Kobe was a little bit under 41%. I think Michael had a better 3-point percentage than Kobe. I'm not certain of that, but I think he did. So, you know what I'm saying? I just don't see the argument for Kobe being a better player. Um, Both were notoriously diva-ish, had issues with teammates, possibly Kobe even more so. Um, Michael won 6 NBA championships, Kobe 5. So Michael was a better rebounder. Maybe Kobe was a slightly better passer. I don't know. Both of them were underrated in their passing and playmaking ability. So, Michael was a better shot blocker. Probably the second best shot blocking guard behind Dwayne Wade. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm trying to figure out what metric are you looking at? Michael was a better offensive rebounder. Not that he was a great offensive rebounder. He was a guard, but he was a better offensive rebounder. One of the great offensive rebounding guards of all time with Clyde Drexler. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what is Dwight Howard talking? Now, you have to also take into account that Dwight Howard did spend the season playing with Kobe Bryant. And he saw the work ethic. And he saw uh, what made Kobe Bryant day in and day out in practice and in game situations. So I can understand him being influenced by that as opposed to just looking at highlight clips of the 35-year-old Michael Jordan or the 34-year-old Michael Jordan with the Chicago Bulls. And let's be honest, some of the best game footage as far as Jordan is concerned was probably the second three-peat. A lot of those games are in HD footage. A lot of millennials don't like looking at, the older game footage. You see the comments in social media. Hey, what they filmed this with a potato? Hey, look, they filmed this with, an onion ring or some shit like that. Like just derogatory, terms for like what type of camera were they using? And I get that. I grew up looking at non HD standard definition, and my eyes feel like they're going to burn out of my sockets when I look at that shit now. But I remember growing up looking at, well, not growing up, but when I was in high school watching the Chicago Bulls, and sometimes I had to really squint, especially when they had the overhead camera view sometimes that they used to show on NBC, and I'd be like, damn, which one is Hopper and Jordan again? Oh, that's right, Jordan, that darker one. Because they both had bald heads and shit from the distant camera view. So I get it. Sometimes, you want to look at the better footage. But I think when you look at prime Michael Jordan, there's a difference. Okay, there's a reason why Chuck Daly once said that Jordan was so good he literally was embarrassing the league. Now he didn't say that during the watered down era of the NBA. You can make the argument that the NBA was becoming watered down by the mid to late 90s. He was saying this in the golden years, the so-called golden years, when the bad boy Pistons were doing their thing, when the Lakers were still a contending franchise, they were still going to the finals, when Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics were still relevant. Okay, right? So he was saying it then. Maybe Michael wasn't having team success or from championship standpoint, but individually he was destroying the NBA. And you can make the argument that Michael Jordan averaged 37 points per game without the benefit of a three-pointer. James Harden came the closest to that this year, but remember, James Harden took over 1,000 three-point attempts. And I think James Harden averaged what? Let me look at something right quick. I know that Curry set the record with 402 three-pointers in the 2015-16 season. I want to see something right quick. So this past season, James Harden made 378 three-pointers, attempted 1,078. So, in the 78 games that James Harden played, he averaged nearly 5 points per game off of three-pointers. 5 three-pointers, meaning that he had, in essence, 5 extra points. So if you take away three-pointers, what is that? 31 points per game. So what Michael Jordan did in the 86-87 season was historic from a perimeter player's perspective, in my opinion, okay? So you just take, I don't know, like I said, he's entitled to his opinion. I just don't see it. I think Kobe's definitely a top 10 all-time player. I can see the argument for him being a top 5 player, but the GOAT, I just don't see it, That's just me. Tell me what you guys think.